Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Eureka Solutions webinar for the Responsible AI Playbook for NetSuite. Now, we've got a mixture of existing customers and also people who are still evaluating ERP systems on the webinar today. So what I'll do is just briefly introduce myself. Now, some of you may already know me, but my name is Jack Loudon, and I started in Eureka's marketing team about 5 years ago in 2021. Now, in Eureka, we use NetSuite as our ERP system, so I quickly got used to how NetSuite works and essentially could understand how all of the system and data was all operating together through all of the departments. And that's the reason why I then became a NetSuite solution consultant in 2023. Now, what that entails is essentially it's understanding the kind of technical needs of the businesses that we speak to, but also how then NetSuite can either flexibly work around people's processes and industries, but also how we can then provide new processes and efficient ways to start working within the system. And I've worked closely with finance, operations, and sales teams with many different customers, but just to mention some of them is people like Rocker, Millwall, Brimond, and Maxa Group. So kind of ranging across different football clubs, heavy stock-based companies, and also project-based businesses as well. And lastly, I'm a member of Eureka's internal AI development team to streamline our internal processes. And that's where it's not just us telling you that you need to be kind of leveraging AI, it's also us focusing inwardly on our internal manual processes and how we can make this more efficient, but also to provide a much kind of friendlier and friendlier and kind of more efficient customer experience. Now, today's agenda, we're going to be focusing on why AI matters now, and especially within NetSuite, and also the available features within NetSuite that Oracle have built in. We're then going to focus on the extended AI connectors from NetSuite, and I'll also be providing some demonstrations of both of these areas as well. So I'll jump in and out of the slideshow. Don't worry, it's not death by PowerPoint today. And then we're going to be focusing on how these can be mitigated in terms of the risks, and also to make sure that people are compliant and secure when using these tools. And then focus on NetSuite Next, which is the kind of next generation ERP, which Oracle have kind of provided trials for customers in the US, but will soon be rolling out throughout the rest of the world. There will be a chance for Q&A, and feel free to just add in your questions whenever you feel like it into the Q&A panel. But I will be addressing all of these at the end, just in case you think I'm missing you. Okay, so AI in NetSuite, why this matters now. And I think the key point to kind of understand here is that AI is no longer this kind of gimmicky tool where you can just go in and play with it. I mean, many people still are and will continue. And there's many different ways that you can use AI, but it's now at the point where you can actually leverage AI to use the data within your business and within your business systems so that it's actually been a lot more productive for you. Now, if you think about it, a lot more, not just finance teams, every team will be under pressure to essentially do more with the same tools which they're given, so the same systems or the same processes. Now, if you're asked to do more, then how can you do more without something that allows you to be a bit more efficient? And AI is essentially here to automate all of that administrative work. So whether it is building a report which isn't available within the system because it's not been built, if you were to do that, it may be a very complex report, or it might be a very simple thing that hasn't been searched for before, and you just want to be able to get that data. And the data's in the system, but it's not in a readable format. And that's where AI can then pick that up so that you're not then having to ask around the full department on who can build that for you. It's also about making sure that the data that is within each different systems or needs to be kind of duplicated across others doesn't need to be manually done. It really kind of removes the need for that kind of manual read data duplication or just kind of pulling things out into spreadsheets and having to build it within there. So what that allows you to do is if that's already kind of built there for you and you can query that, it means that you can spend a lot more time actually kind of digging into the data and drilling down further rather than just spending a lot of that time. So if you think about those, if you're currently using NetSuite, how much time you used to use Excel or whatever tool that you used previously to build these reports, you now get these in NetSuite at the click of a button. But then there'll be other further reports which you then want to kind of understand in a deeper context, and AI will allow you to do that in a much deeper context. And this isn't about replacing people, just to be clear, and that is a kind of a valid concern that people have. But if we think of it in the context of when people didn't have power tools, so if you've got a person with a screwdriver and somebody comes along for a drill, it's essentially allowing you to kind of use that machine to essentially be more productive and get more done. While also just having a lot more kind of confidence in the data that you're using as well. So it's no longer should we use AI, it's how can we use AI safely and adopt kind of relevant processes which are kind of leveraging the data within our core business systems. And NetSuite provides that kind of environment for AI to pull the data um, and kind of has that established ERP data table and structure so that the AI can easily read all of that data. Whereas if you've just got like a kind of messy database, or depending on what system you may be using just now, it does make that a lot easier for AI to hallucinate if the data is not in a clear setup. Now, there's kind of two different opportunities for NetSuite customers to leverage AI. Firstly, you've got the MCP AI connector tool, which allows you to connect your NetSuite system to other AI learning models, such as Claude and ChatGPT. So that allows you to essentially pull the data from NetSuite into Claude, which I personally prefer. And Claude will also be able to pull data out from additional systems as well. It also allows you to push data back in. So if you want to create a customer, or if you want to, for example, capture a customer's purchase order and turn that into a sales order, then that is something that Claude can do. The other opportunity is for AI to be built within the system. So there are many different ways and kind of small individual features which are being built out. And that is things which can provide you faster reporting and analysis and kind of earlier exception detection, and allows you to kind of spend a lot more time on that kind of strategic reporting and analysis. And these are kind of things that we will show you today. But first, if we start on the available AI features within NetSuite, we have things such as payment date prediction. And what that's doing is it's looking at the historical timescales for your customers to make payments, depending on when the invoice has been generated and when the payment has been received. So that allows you to essentially have better cash flow forecasting and be able to make kind of clear decisions based on when money might actually be entering into the bank. You've also got the financial exception management, which will use historical transactions and highlight when payments or invoices or nominal codes have been chosen incorrectly. So it may be that a recurring payment, which normally happens, and it's been sent to a different bank account, or it's actually been double the amount that it usually has. So it's going to then flag this up within the system. We also have the intelligent close manager as well. So again, this is another dashboard feature which allows you to consolidate a lot of the month-end processes into one portlet on the dashboard, and it will then give you an insight into where you're at in the state of period month end. We have the narrative insights, and that's a feature where at the click of a button, whatever page, records, transaction, report you're on, NetSuite will then provide narrative insights into that report. So it might be like your opportunities, risks, and the kind of key topics within that page as well. Another feature is the intelligent item recommendations, and this is for the kind of sales team. So if you are on the phone to a customer or just chatting via email, of course, When inputting a quote or a sales order, it then allows you to be able to see how can we upsell, or how can we, if we don't have this product in stock, suggest a similar product. Now, obviously, if your sales team have been there for years, they're going to know that data, but this helps any new starts get up to date, and also kind of provides a bit more, a lot more recommendations based on actual data. So, for example, we can look at the customer's own sales history. What have they previously bought, and how can we then suggest that that gets purchased again? Or if other customers or similar customers buy this product, what do they also buy? So, how can we then continue that upsell? And then lastly, there is also the text enhance, which is probably NetSuite's oldest AI tool, and it has had a lot of upgrades over the past year or so. But essentially, it really depends on your use case if you need things like that or not. So examples of that is it can suggest the item descriptions for your kind of sales description of an item. It might be that you're generating an email from the system, and the system can kind of create that email for you rather than you having to type that out. So there's little things like that which are constantly getting better and better. Now, it's probably worthwhile that we should see some of these features in actions. What I'll do is we'll just head into the demo account. Now, if you haven't seen NetSuite before, then this may look quite new to you, but of course, if you're already using it, then there will maybe be a couple new portlets for you to see. I'm not going to go through a full introduction of the system. I'm just going to focus on the key points which we're focusing on. So, if we think about the Intelligent Close Manager, now unfortunately it's a demo account, so I have limited data, and month end isn't something that I do on a regular basis. So what we can see here is that the task completion is 100%. So we can actually see where we are in the stage of month end. And I know we've got the month end checklist, but this just gives you a kind of easier dashboard to look at as well. So we can look at this in the context of what period that we're looking at, and we can also look at it in the context of which subsidiary. So I'm just looking at all of them just now, but we can see that there's outstanding tasks. So there's 11 open tasks, and the largest one is to invoice the sales orders which haven't been invoiced yet. Now, on the right here, we can then see the drop down of what is waiting, and then we see that we know that it's going to be the invoicing sales orders that's the biggest task. So we can then see here what are waiting on us. And we can see here, again, there's a link so that we can then take you to the page where we can then bulk create those invoices from the sales orders. And now I'm the CFO and my permissions don't allow me to do that, but essentially it would just be clicking on that hyperlink there and it would take me to that page. We can then see the other estimated impacts and the monetary value of this as well. Now, there was a narrative insight button on this. However, that has been taken away just now while they're making updates to the system. So that would essentially give you a bit more detail than these fields here. And it would say, for example, the largest task outstanding is to invoice your sales orders, and it might be sales order X, Y, and Z that are the largest ones, and these need to be prioritized, that kind of thing. The other feature that we have on our dashboards today is the exception management. And again, I need to apologize for demo data because what it should be looking for is historical transactions. And NetSuite have said that if you've got 18 months worth of data within the system, then that's when this exception management is going to be at its best. You can start using it after 2 months, for example, but it's not going to be at its most accurate. And that is a kind of one of those things with AI is the more data that you can use and it can learn from, then the better it's going to be. And that's why, if you're already using NetSuite, you're going to be able to kind of benefit from all of the historical data that you've got within the system. If you've just started using NetSuite, at least you've got you've got one step ahead than everybody else. And if you're not using NetSuite, then you may have historical data, but it will need to be plugged in via another platform and maybe used within Claude, for example, Whereas when NetSuite has its own full AI functionality embedded, it's going to take a while for you to kind of build up all of that history for AI to leverage. So the sooner that you get onto a platform that can leverage AI, then the better it's going to be for your business. What I can show, if we look at this exception management, however, is we can then look at what it's going to cover. So I mentioned earlier the different types of transactions. So it will have a list down here of all of the transactions, and it will have a hyperlink to those transactions. But we'll also have the type of exception that it's going to be looking at. So for example, the invoice value has been exceeded its usual amount. If it's a regular occurring transaction. It might be that the nominal code or the reporting segment has changed and that needs to be investigated. Or it might be that a bank account has been changed, so just to prevent any fraudulent activity. That means that, whoever's at the top or in charge of this process can have a look at that on a monthly basis. We can also change the sensitivity. So we can say, okay, well, it's got high sensitivity, so it's not going to look at too many transactions. So it's going to look at plenty of transactions and maybe kind of pull them out. Or if it's got low sensitivity, then it's not going to bother with some of the kind of the lesser exceptions. What we can show though is those expected transactions. And when we're talking about those expected transactions, these are ones that happen perhaps monthly, quarterly, and we can see here when the expected date of this is to happen. So if I was to look at this invoice, which is expected on the 7th, I can actually see, what is the action here. And it will say, based on your historical transactions, we expect this invoice to be posted between the 1st and the 7th, and it's not been posted yet, and the impact potentially is this value here. So you can see here all of the historical transactions, which is pulling this data from. And if you get to month end, of course, we're on the 1st of July just now. If you were to get on to the end of July, it then gives you a reason to look further into this, or you can create it directly from this page, or you can say, actually, this is fine, and I have resolved this. So it no longer needs to be shown there. Okay. And then lastly, if we just go into the P&L, what we can then do is we can generate a narrative insight. So if I click this button here, and that button is going to be on many different pages, it's then going to provide this insight to say, okay, what was our top 5 findings, risks, opportunities? And that's kind of quite good just to, if there's a lot of data on the screen, then it means you can kind of highlight any of the key areas that you need for analysis. Now, what I would say about this is it's good. Obviously, it might be a step up from what you're using just now, and it kind of saves having for you to write down all of this analysis. However, at this moment, I see it as quite limited in the terms that you can't then query that data further. So you can't then ask questions within the system about, why gross profit looks this way. Why are these risks the way that they are, and really drill down deeper into that. Now, that's not a feature that's available at this very second, but that will be apparent in the future, and we'll come on to that in just a minute. So if I just close that down. Now, speaking of querying the data in our system, that is where we can then leverage those large language models such as Claude and ChatGPT. So being able to connect our NetSuite data into these platforms, which are kind of far more advanced than any ERP AI just now, it really means that we can then query that data. Now, what is an MCP server? Essentially, it means that Oracle have built out the kind of data tables and the direct data flow into Claude and ChatGPT. Other AIs may be available in future. But what that then means is that you can pull all of the data from your system back and forth and from between NetSuite and those AI platforms. And that's using that real-time data and allowing you to leverage those kind of AI assistants, agents, and use the kind of framework for their models. It means that you also don't have to build anything. It's really easy for you to use, and it's built on a system that typically people do trust in this day and age. Now, there's different apps available via this Suite app. So, for example, we have the prompt library, and what this enables you to do is, if you don't already use AI, and it might be something that you're not really sure on how to use it, NetSuite have developed prompts, and when we say prompt, we mean, what are you telling the AI to do? And depending on the prompt is going to give you, it's going to depend on the output that you then have the result of. So the better the prompt, the better the output. And NetSuite have created out-of-the-box prompts so that you can then leverage these to find out reports and analysis from your NetSuite data. It also means that you can then use these so that you know for in future how to write these yourselves. And that's something that when you start to use AI, you might not really understand. Okay, I don't know what the limitations, what the possibilities are. And the more that you use it, the more that you will get to understand it as a very much intuitive platform. But the best way to learn is just by getting into the thick of it. There's also the ability for the record selector and report filters, so that essentially NetSuite can look through the different records and also filter different reports so that it pulls out the information that you need. Now, speaking of prompt library, what I can then do is go back into our demo account, and we can then access our prompt library so that we can then see what this looks like. So if we open this up, this is the prompt library, and this is free to install into the system, as is with any of the kind of AI features within NetSuite. And we can see here that there's a total of 101 prompts which are available out of the box. It's currently showing 34 because it's based on the role that I'm currently in. But if we wanted to see different types of categories, then these are the different ones that we can look at. So it might be stock, finance, sales, procurement, system administration, etc., etc. So if I wanted to look through all of the different prompts, there's kind of various different ones, and I'm not going to go through them all, but it just kind of give you that idea of the types of things which can be pulled, just for a bit of example. So if I wanted to look into a current period financial overview, just use the first and simplest one here. If I want to click use prompt, then it's going to then send this prompt to Claude. So that's going to automatically open up in my Claude account. And I've already connected this NetSuite demo account to Claude, so it should work. However, I do have lots of different demo accounts, so it may just struggle to understand which demo account we want to use first. We'll see if, because it's currently connected, it should. Now, you also notice here that it's used some placeholders. So, for example, current period and subsidiary. And because I've got multiple periods and multiple subsidiaries within NetSuite, it probably is going to ask me what ones I want to look at. And this allows you to then just have this kind of general back and forth so that you say, okay, well, I want to have a look at it for June for subsidiary 1, but then I might want to compare that to May in subsidiary 1 or June in subsidiary 1, for example. Okay, so you can see here, I can then choose my subsidiary. I can choose the date. We'll do that to there. I'll just look at all. No, okay. So having this kind of back and forth with the AI allows it to just make sure that it's not just hallucinating and giving you data because that's what it thinks you want. It makes sure that it's actually kind of checking the data back and forth with you. And depending on the kind of AI model that you're using, there may be some hallucinations, but the fact that it's then kind of giving you back and forth and using that I mean, I don't know about you, but this is not the language I would use, but it really broke it down with me for by providing that kind of table of allowing me to choose the dates and to and from. So what I can then do is kind of really say, okay, well, here's your overall summary, here's your percentage of revenue and breakdown, etc. We'll also highlight some key topics like the narrative insights did. But what I can then do is provide additional information, or I could say, okay, I want to understand this part that you've explained for me further. So you can really have that kind of natural language conversation without having to kind of do it yourself. So that's a kind of key example of how AI can be leveraged, just using financial data. Some of the other things is that we can create customers from the system. So I can say, okay, well, I've got a Excel file or a PDF of customer details. Can you please start the onboarding of this customer? And it can create the customer within NetSuite. I mentioned earlier, one of the things that we get asked for quite often now is for stock-based businesses, they want to create a sales order within the system when the customer sends that purchase order, but they don't want to have the sales team manually writing everything out because it could be 50 lines, for example. So it could be that you then put in that the customer's purchase order into Claude, and it can then generate the sales order within NetSuite. Now it's worth always checking those transactions, but that is another key example of where a lot of time can be saved. And one of the other features which I think is kind of worth highlighting is that because Claude is also built into Excel and other Microsoft products, it means that we can then pull all of that data into Excel. Now, many people might be using an ODBC connector or Solution 7 to pull all of that data, and this isn't going to replace that. Essentially, what we can then do is because the data that Claude is going to pull into Excel, it's based on the context of the information that you give it. So it might not always be absolutely correct, but what it can then do is build those reports based on the different things that you prompt it to. So for example, on this page here, I asked for a summarized P&L of that demo account and it provided it for the month of June and also, but also for last year as well. So it was comparative and showed me the variance. And it then kind of built out these additional sheets so that it could then pull through all the nominal codes and all of the data that it used to pull that report into it. And then one of the questions that I've got with two ongoing prospective NetSuite customers is their quotes are extremely complex because it'll be a kind of project, so they want to kind of highlight each of the different items that are needed and all of the relevant costs so that they can then build this up in Excel and then have all of that information captured within NetSuite. So what I then looked to do was pull through all of the relevant item data, the relevant item prices, and also perhaps the customer specific pricing. So we can see here, these are all of the items which are within my demo account. So I could then say, okay, well, we're going to have like 5 hours of this, and it's going to then add that into the quote. And then what I could ask is to say, okay, Claude, can you post this back into NetSuite for me for this opportunity for this customer? So that's then kind of, again, providing that link in between Excel and NetSuite via Claude and all of that AI automation. Okay. Now, what are the risks of AI, and how can we mitigate these? So data exposure is one of those kind of key elements, and probably the kind of largest risk of anybody that's using AI. And one way that what this essentially means is that people aren't then going to be able to access data that they shouldn't be, and whether that's data within their own company that, if it's a salesperson, they should be able to see kind of some financial data because it's not relevant to them and it's kind of potentially harmful. The other risks are prompt injections, and that's where if you've got quite a long prompt, there might be a phrase or line in there which somebody's put in there, which is then going to make the AI behave in a way that isn't kind of relevant and not intended. So it may then kind of flag up data which isn't correct, or it's maybe been told to miss out actually important data. So that's again something that needs to be looked out for, and that's why it's good to understand what the best prompts are for AI. And that can also cause hallucinated outputs. And hallucination in AI is something that is kind of quite a quite a big issue. I don't know if you've used AI in the past, but there might be some things that very you're very knowledgeable on, and you then end up arguing with AI because it's saying one thing quite confidently, and then you say no, that's incorrect, and it says, oh yes, I've actually missed out this, that, the next thing. So having all of that data there, and providing the full context means that you're then going to kind of remove any of those poor decisions based on AI, and making sure that AI is connected to a system like NetSuite where all of the data is there will help prevent that. You've also got unauthorized actions. So if it's kind of been poorly governed, so it might be AI agents which work on an automatic basis where if X happens, it will automatically create Y. Without them being governed, it can then create things within the system which need to be overlooked and monitored. And lastly, if there's any kind of AI changes which are made, these need to be monitored because it can cause record inaccuracy. It can mess up audit trails, and it just makes kind of overall untrustworthiness in your data, and that could be throughout the company if that then happens as well. Now, what are the controls to reduce this? And specifically for NetSuite, when you use that MCP connection, it means that when you log into Claude and access that data, it's only looking at the data that is relevant to the role that you have within NetSuite. So as the CFO, for example, my permissions allow me to look at customer data, but I can't create customer data. So that's only going to let me view that in Claude. And that takes me on to the next point of least privilege permission. Just because you can do something within NetSuite doesn't mean that you should be able to do it in AI. So what you can then do is set up the relevant governance so that people may be able to do some things in NetSuite, but they're not able to do it in AI. And those platforms like Claude can allow you to essentially make sure that only the certain things that can be achieved within the system. Using trusted tools, so using your big AI systems such as Claude and ChatGPT, or NetSuite when it then when it comes into fruition, it means that you can then have a kind of clear security and data handling controls. It means that it's then going to be well governed, and it's not going to be something that is just a small tool which doesn't really have the proper governance in place. Another key element is having human approval points. So make sure that there is a human that's actually monitoring, checking things. Perhaps when Claude is going to create something in NetSuite, you have it so that it's set up for approval. So it's not automatically posting to the ledger or not automatically generating payments or this and the next thing. And just making sure that there's a kind of process in place for continuously reviewing the activity of these AI tools. So talking about the future, NetSuite have announced that they are going to be releasing NetSuite Next, and that should be happening within the next kind of 6 to 12 months. Now, what is NetSuite Next? Essentially an extension of the NetSuite platform. So it's going to be a lot more collaborative, and it's going to be a lot more kind of intuitive for your users to use AI within the same system that they would be working in on a day-to-day basis. It means that they can then use all of that kind of data and react to it and kind of chat with it using natural language so that, for those reports that are difficult to build, it's easy to do that. And they can then share that across the rest of the business, no matter if it's locally or in other countries as well. And it also means that because it's going to be built within the system, it's going to understand the localizations in the different contexts. So for any VAT handling in the UK, it's going to be handled differently from VAT in the US. And that just means that, with the system's understanding, it's already got that built within the system, so the AI is going to understand that as well. And then because it's built within NetSuite, of course, as we've just mentioned, it's only going to respect the roles that they've been given and set up. Again, it's always ready going to understand all of your workflows and really just leverage and provide a lot more efficiencies for the users that are using that. Now, Oracle see this as the future. As you can see here, it's got quite a different UI, and I've seen videos of it. It looks really good. If you Google NetSuite next, there will be some demo information. If you are in the US, which I'm assuming most of you, if not all of you, are not, there are also trials available for people to start leveraging this so they can use it using their own data just now. Now, if we look at this page here, we can see here that we've got the Oracle logo in the bottom right, and this will appear in your NetSuite instance as a toggle. So it means that you can then open this page up. So again, it's still using that new UI, but still pulling off of all of the data which is already yours, and that'll be across all of the kind of permissions that you have. So if you want to ask Oracle to create a report or to create this or to investigate that, then it's all going to happen within the system. One of the nice things that I think is undervalued what this will bring is it's also going to have all of the context of all of your documents which you've held within the system. So if you think about anything that is within the file cabinet, whether it be invoices, sales documents, or if you're a project business or software, you may have all of the different contracts, all the different project plans, and it'll be able to read across all of that and provide a lot more insight as well, rather than just the data which is held within each of the different fields. Okay, thank you very much for kind of following me along that kind of AI discussion there. If you don't already know us, just to give us a bit more insight onto our experience, we've been a partner since 2012 for NetSuite, and in that year we won EMEA New Partner of the Year as well. We've also won many additional awards, such as 5-star partner and best performing partner. And we've achieved all of the kind of accreditations, which was introduced in 2022, and we achieve that every year. And that's based on the certifications and qualifications that our internal consultants have. And we've delivered over 130 NetSuite projects since we started. And these kind of vary throughout many different industries. So as I mentioned earlier, football teams, distribution, manufacturing, service, whether that be material based or not, and also the many different kind of leisure and venue based entertainment businesses as well. So we've got vast experience across different businesses, and we'd be more than happy to discuss anything with you if you're not already using NetSuite. If you are using NetSuite and you would want to discuss this further, then we're more than happy to have a kind of half an hour call with myself or one of the other kind of technical team in Eureka, so that we can discuss, what you're currently using with AI, or what you want to be using, or what better processes can be utilized for you to progress and essentially become a lot more competitive within your industry. Because without using AI, it's kind of highly likely that you may start to fall behind. Okay, so I'm going to begin the Q&A. I'll double check if there's been any questions added as of just now. But feel free to kind of open up with some questions and I will answer where possible. If not, then thank you very much. But if you're waiting to see what some of the answers are, then feel free to add in the questions. So we've got one question here. Is there any timeline for trial of NetSuite next in the UK? So as NetSuite does, everything is being launched in the US initially. So I know that there are customers that essentially have that set up and kind of beta trials, and they're able to use that. And I've seen kind of posts on LinkedIn asking, or basically talking about how good it's been after just a couple of days of use. In the UK, between 6 and 12 months, I would believe. Of course, with the kind of current upgrade cycle, with the next upgrade kind of starting in August, September time, I would imagine that's when it's maybe released to the US, and I reckon it'll likely be kind of February, March before it's launched in the UK. So looking at the webinar chat as well, apologies, it seems that my screen has stopped sharing. So next, is there additional cost behind this? So my understanding is that there isn't, but I can't say for certain. I think what NetSuite are hoping to achieve is the AI features, unless it's part of an additional module, it's not going to then add additional costs. So it should be integrated within your existing costs, but I can't confirm until that's been officially launched. Can AI add in historic sales data to sales customers on NetSuite, for example, from Excel data? So one of if it's, for example, you're not on NetSuite or you're just starting out in NetSuite, you don't have your historical sales, one of the processes that you could use is to actually import your sales data historically, and that would just be like it would just be closed zero value sales orders, but that would then give you the ability to have all of that kind of customer purchase history um, in the system so that you can utilize that. If you were to look at from the other side, if you've got all of that in Excel, you wouldn't be able to use the intelligent item recommendations within NetSuite, but you'd be able to use Claude and pull the information from within there. Will the Claude connection work with budget uploads or similar Excel format? That's a good question. I haven't tested that, but I imagine it should be able to. It really depends on the format. If it's the kind of regular import that you would from Excel, um, just using the kind of normal import CSV process within NetSuite, then I imagine it's going to be fine, but I would need to double check that for you. Does data security fall under Oracle's data security T's and C's? So the data security for any AI within NetSuite that will, yes, for any of the MCP information within Claude. Oracle are essentially saying that they've built the connector and that's going to be secure. But once that data is within Claude, then that's not kind of no longer within their control. So just to make that clear, one thing which I'm not sure if I mentioned earlier, but if you're using Claude or ChatGPT, if you're just using the free account or not using like a team or enterprise license, make sure that all of your employees that use this have turned off the data learning or data training for those learning platforms. They're not going to share the data with any other businesses, but it means that they can retain that data and use it for internal data practice. If you've got like a team or enterprise license, it means that, whoever the Claude admin is can make sure that they've turned that off for everybody. Because if they don't have that, then it's just going to automatically turn on until somebody's turned that off. How extensible, customizable are the AI features? If we use an external AI app running alongside NetSuite, is there a way to have the native AI system communicate with the external AI app? That's not something that is kind of available just now. So, for example, if we think about NetSuite next, how is that going to communicate with Claude? I think at this moment in time, it would likely be one or the other. And until we have those AI tools available, we can't really understand or look into the back end of how those features will work the same way that we can, customize things. Just now with the kind of standard NetSuite processes, transactions, records, etc. However, because that data is within the system, it will be able to kind of communicate and pull that to the external AI. And no, there is not any updates on Copilot being on the AI MCP. That was announced at some point. However, what the feedback that I've heard from customers is that it doesn't work. So we have essentially just stopped telling people to try. And until NetSuite have launched an update for that, then that's going to continue to be the, the, the unfortunate circumstance. Does ChatGPT work with NetSuite with the agent builders for more automation? And is this something Eureka have tested? So I'm not entirely sure what's meant by that, unless you mean for developing within the system. I don't know if you can clarify that one, Mike. No worries, Mike. I can catch up with you after. Um, that's not a problem, but thanks for the question. Okay, so thanks everybody for joining me today. Hopefully you've learned some things, and I really do encourage you to kind of start using AI and start practicing with it a bit more if you're not already using it. But if that's something that you would want to discuss with one of our team in a kind of more one-to-one session, then we're more than happy to do that. Just get in touch with your account manager and we can get that set up. And we can have somebody from the kind of technical team, whether it be myself, Rory, or somebody else that's kind of up to speed on all of the kind of NetSuite AI functionality, and discuss through your kind of current processes and how they can be automated a bit further. So thank you very much. And if you're not using NetSuite and want to discuss this further, please get in touch as well. I'm more than happy to help. Have a lovely rest of your day.